Hi, this is Julie, and welcome to Throwback Thursday. In honor of Mother's Quest turning 5, this season 7 of the podcast will bring episodes to you every Thursday. In addition to new episodes, we'll also share some powerful conversations from the archives. Keep in mind while listening that you may hear about some events or offerings that are no longer current. But whether you've heard this episode before or it's new to you, I hope you'll find something here as relevant as ever to light your way. This October, taking a cue from the leaves on the trees this fall season, I'll share episodes that invite us to release the societal and internal pressures that disempower and confine us in the role of motherhood. Let's examine them through powerful conversations with Mother's Quest podcast guests and then take small steps to let them go. For this week's Throwback Thursday, I want to bring back the second interview I ever recorded back in 2016 with entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and author Katherine Wintsch. In our conversation, Katherine shares how she learned to let go of people-pleasing and mommy guilt, and instead got curious, learned to love herself, and designed a life that fulfills her. We talk about the power of revealing the truth about motherhood, and that it's absolutely okay to not be okay, and to not have all the answers. If you love this episode, you'll also want to listen to a second interview I recorded with Katherine after she published her book, Slay Your Dragon of Self-Doubt. Now, on to the show. Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to 2 high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? On this episode of Mother's Quest, I had an opportunity to talk with an amazing mother, entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and blogger named Katherine Wintsch about bringing authenticity into our lives as women and mothers. Katherine is a nationally recognized expert on the topic of modern motherhood. As the founder and CEO of the Mom Complex, she advises major corporations on what mothers really need in order to create better products and services that make mothers' lives easier. She writes about the highs and lows of motherhood in her blog, In All Honesty. Her TEDx talk titled Unmasking Motherhood uses spoken word to deliver a powerful call to action to mothers, and inspired me to let down my own mask, to be vulnerable and honest through the creation of Mother's Quest. In our conversation, Katherine shares how she learned to let go of people-pleasing and mommy guilt, and instead got curious, learned to love herself, and designed a life that fulfills her. We talk about the power of revealing the truth about motherhood, and that it's absolutely okay to not be okay, and to not have all the answers. I hope her story will inspire you to let down your own mask and help you step more fully into your own authentic, epic life. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. So, Katherine, welcome to the Mother's Quest podcast. It's so great to have you today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your story and your journey as a mom.
Great. Thank you for having me, Julie.
I wanted to start with actually hearing a little bit about what your childhood was like growing up and the role that your mother played in shaping who you are.
I was blessed to have to grow up in a very loving household with both mother and father, very supportive. And, I would say my mother was tough but fair and very loving, and definitely taught me that you can have a career, but you don't have to be a slave to it. And you can be a good mom at the same time as being a good employee.
What kind of work did your mother do?
She was a nurse in the operating room, which meant that I never really got taken to the doctor or the hospital because she would always know that there wasn't something really wrong with me when I was trying to get out of school or, get away with something. She was like, oh, no, you're fine. You can still move it.
That's amazing. I think so much of being a mom is actually worrying about the health of our children. So it sounds like there was a confidence she had as a mom that must have been really helpful.
Yeah, very much. And, I have to say, too, about my mom is we were and still are very, very close. But, she was never overbearing. She wasn't a helicopter mother. She, very much, watched my brother do what we were doing and become who we were becoming, and definitely didn't, micromanage or, help us pick our friends or what we were doing. And I saw a lot of my friends' mothers doing that, in high school, just kind of hovering and being a little overbearing. And I was always very grateful that my mom had the trust and confidence in both my brother and I that, we could figure some things out and make some mistakes, but that we didn't, need it, that too much, oversight.
Yeah, but you have your own life experience and your own experiences of success and failure, it sounds like. And I've followed along with your story through your blog, which I absolutely love. I look forward to getting the latest post every Monday. Your blog is called In All Honesty. But you definitely had a journey in terms of your career and coming back into realizing not fulfilling what you thought was going to be bringing you success and happiness, but finding the path that really worked for you. Could you share that story with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born and raised in the advertising industry, meaning I started working in advertising right after grad school and spent 14 great long years in advertising and loved the people that I worked with and enjoyed the work quite often. But it was all consuming for me. And I learned, or I can say now in hindsight, that it's where I derived my self-worth and my value, was that if I was succeeding at work and winning business and getting to the next rung on the corporate ladder, then I felt good about myself. And if I was losing business and not doing well at work, it was very devastating to me. And so while on the outside, a lot of people would look at my career and be impressed by the titles and the trophies that I was collecting, it just took up too much of my life. And I really, at the time, did not spend any time on myself. I didn't spend time with friends. I didn't spend nearly as much time with my family. And, after a while, it became not okay that I was living my life that way. I wasn't very healthy. I was probably working 80 hours a week. And there started to be this disconnect inside of me. And it would happen most frequently when someone would say, you must be so proud of what you're doing at work. It's so neat. And my mouth would say, yay. I would say, yes, I am. But my whole body would say nay. I mean, my insides, my gut, kind of the voice inside of me was saying that I felt trapped. I felt overwhelmed. And it very quickly became kind of a treadmill to nowhere. I mean, I could see that even when I achieved more success, that it was very fleeting in terms of I was only happy about it for 4 or 5 days, and I was looking for the next, rung on the ladder. And so it finally all, came to a head, and I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and start my own company, and I wanted to be more in control of my self-worth and my self-esteem and my happiness. And that was 3 years ago.
So you had a blog post last week that I was intrigued by, and you talked about an experience that became a spark for you to make the change. I've had that own experience in my life, and I actually think it's a common element of what I'm calling this epic journey, that there's some kind of a turning point and a call to action. Can you share what that moment was for you that made you finally start to say, no more, I'm going to make a change?
Yeah, there's, when I think back, there's probably a couple, but one that jumps out to me is several years ago, probably 5 years ago, I was on Christmas vacation, had been home for probably 2 weeks. And at that time, I only had to be a mother and a wife because I wasn't working for those 2 weeks over Christmas break. And my husband, I was making spaghetti dinner. I was getting ready to go back to work. And he said, what's wrong? You seem very tense. And I said, I'm just worried about going back to work. And I feel like I have to be a good mother, a good wife, and a good employee. And I'm not sure I can do all three well. And he said to me, why don't you just be yourself, Katherine? What is so wrong with being you? And I said nothing out loud, but a voice inside of me, as clear as day, said, I don't like me. And it was instant. It was, what is so wrong with being you? And my response in my head was, I don't like me. And I chose in that moment to get really curious and think to myself, like, wait, I don't like me. Is that real? Like, why don't I like myself? Is that normal? Do people not like themselves? And that was, there were, like I said, there were several sparks, and I've written about a couple of them, but that one was the most profound because I knew it was true and I believed it to be true. And so I made the conscious choice to get very curious about why I didn't like myself. And I started recording and watching every Oprah episode that I could get my hands on. I was drinking lots of red wine. I was reading lots of self-help books, but I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And I knew that I had to make some changes in my life in order to kind of rekindle that flame and learn to love myself.
I think it's so amazing that you were able to tap into curiosity, because I know for me, when I could be in a place of curiosity instead of judgment, that's where I can really make powerful changes. And I've seen that happen with other people too.
Yeah. And one of the things that I am most proud of in that journey of like the choice for curiosity was my whole MO for probably the previous 20 years of my life was denial. And so I think that, had that emotion or those words come to me 6 months earlier, a year earlier, I would have dismissed them and I would have thought, oh, well, who said that? Or that's not true. Or how can I not like myself? And just ha 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 and move on. But for the first time in my life, I chose to, really believe it and not sweep it under the rug. And I had become very good at sweeping emotions and feelings under the rug and, practicing the great art of denial.
Yeah, I've had that experience too of just like having these like whispers or nudges or feelings that something's not quite right for a while, but there's something about just the right moment when you're ready to start to make the change.
Yeah.
So how did this personal exploration that you're talking about and your path towards entrepreneurship and the creation of your company, which is called Mom Complex, how did those come together?
Well, I, it was probably a year of kind of exploration and learning about myself. Became a voracious reader of self-help books to the point that my husband, was always like, why can't you just read trashy romance novels like other women? Why do you have to be so introspective and, curious about this? But I was serious about it and I wanted to learn more. And what I realized was that in the particular career that I had, which was in advertising, it really was endless. I mean, it was like you were only as good as your last ad or your last campaign or your last meeting. And I started to feel almost like, an alcoholic in a bar, in the sense that environment was not healthy for me. And I had a very hard time saying no. And I was an incredible people pleaser. And I had it down pat. And I knew what other people wanted from me and needed from me. And I would exceed their expectations every time. But I had nothing left for me. It was a shell of a human being because I was trying to please and exceed the expectations of, 5 or 7 different people. And that was my currency. And that's where my self-esteem came from. And so I really associated that, lack of self-worth and self-compassion with the environment that I was in, not necessarily the people, because I loved the people, but that industry is very hard. And so I felt like I would be better being the head of something small. So I was the head of a very, very big team in my previous agency and was responsible for the jobs of over 100 different people. And it wasn't good for me. And I came to the conclusion that smaller was better, and that if smaller, would allow me to draw more boundaries and say no more frequently and go on more field trips and, actually show up to a friend's house with a present instead of empty-handed, that would be a better environment for me. And so while I was scared to start my own company, I knew that I couldn't stay in the just the environment that I was in before.
And can you tell me more about what Mom Complex does and the ways in which you feel that you're making a difference in the lives of moms through it?
Yeah, so we act as a strategic consulting company. And what's fascinating is that we are very small. So there's 5 full-time employees, and then we have 5 freelancers or independent contractors. And while our company is very small and helps me sleep very well at night, we consult with the largest companies in the world. So Walmart, Johnson & Johnson, Kimberly-Clark, the Discovery Channel, Play School, Lego, like big, huge companies. But it doesn't mean that this company has to be big in order to do that. So we work alongside those companies and we help them better understand what it's really like to be a mother, not the June Cleaver version that most executives think that mothers live. And then we help those companies develop better products or services for mothers. So we've helped them develop better television shows, better shopping experiences, better yogurt products or technology-driven products. So it's deeply fulfilling because I feel like we are able to impact the lives of mothers by getting them more help and better products and services, but we're able to do it through, consulting with these big companies.
As you're talking about this and beginning to change the way that companies present images to moms in a more real way, I'm thinking about the way I first learned about you, which is I came across your TED Talk called Unmasked Motherhood. And I was just really in awe of it. It resonated so much with me. And I'm wondering, what was the journey that got you to that point of the TED Talk?
It just makes me laugh because I was so terrified giving that talk, and like the journey up to it was like sheer horror. I've always done a lot of public speaking, and part of what I do, even as the CEO of the Mom Complex, is because I'm studying mothers all day, every day, and conducting research around the world with mothers. I've learned so much about the trials and tribulations of being a mother, and I got to the point that I felt selfish keeping that information to myself, because what I've learned in my research is that every mother feels like she's doing a terrible job. Every mother's wearing a mask and acting like she has it all under control. And I just felt like it was my responsibility to share this knowledge, because when I learned this knowledge, it really set me free, that I didn't have to be perfect and that wasn't the goal. And so I wanted to find the most influential stage that I could stand on and share that information. So I applied to speak at TEDx RVA here in Richmond, Virginia, where I live, and was accepted. But what was interesting was that a lot of TED Talks are 18 minutes long, and I got slotted into a 6-minute talk. And wow. I was very disappointed. My feelings were hurt, and I felt like because I was going to talk about moms, that they gave me a shorter time slot because it wasn't going to be very interesting. And So I really took it as a challenge, and I was upset about it for a day or two. But then I thought, you know what? I think everything happens for a reason. And how can I be incredibly impactful in 6 minutes? And I have this message that I want to share. And so I started studying spoken word poetry and found a way to write the speech in a way. And my goal was that I not only wanted the content to be memorable, but I wanted the delivery mechanism to be memorable as well. So I worked really hard on those 6 minutes, the hardest 6 minutes I've ever worked in my life. Months leading up to it.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of meaning packed into those 6 minutes, and I encourage anybody listening to our conversation to go and check it out, and I'll have a link in the show notes to it. But it really inspired me, and around Mother's Day of last year, I ended up writing a post where I included a photo of my little guy, Jake, in hysterical tears. I think it was because at the time he wanted more goldfish crackers, and I had drawn the line. There was no more. And I just felt like those are the kind of photos that we don't typically share with one another. And it was really inspired by a photo you actually included in your TED Talk of your daughter. And I was amazed by the profound responses I got from friends and family, many of whom then posted their own pictures of the moments that aren't always perfect with their children. And it's really stayed with me, that idea of taking our mask off and revealing the parts of being a mom that are not always so easy, but are still really meaningful and part of how our kids are growing and we're growing.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that, if we hide the hard parts of motherhood, then we rob it of its meaning and of our success. So if we all walk through life and we're like, I got it, and my husband's really helpful, my children always listen to everything I say, and, we just smile and nod our way through life, I don't think we get the help that we need, but also other mothers can't see themselves in our story. So, when you posted that picture of your son and I saw it, it was like, wow, thank you. Thank goodness. That's exactly how every day of my life is. And I think the more moms open up, then it does kind of hit a release valve for other mothers. A blog post I just released this morning was, I just went hiking out in Jackson Hole, and I took a picture at the top of this mountain, and it looks like a pretty picture, and it looks like I'm very, happy and fulfilled, but I was totally and utterly terrified because I ran into a 6-foot elk on the way to the top of the mountain. And so the picture is not a happy, pretty picture to me. It's the moment that I thought I was going to get eaten by a wild animal. Yeah. And, but I think when you don't know that backstory and people aren't honest about the backstory, people might look at that picture and say, wow, she's so courageous, or, that's such a great picture. But I think it's up to us to tell the truth behind the pictures.
Yeah. So I told you this before, but one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast and why I created Mother's Quest, which officially became an LLC on Friday.
Yay.
So I'm now officially a business owner, which is not something I imagined I would do in the past, but it feels pretty good. I really want to create an authentic community for moms to share what's really happening in their lives, to go after more meaning in their lives, to be more mindful with their children. I'm wondering, from your own experience and from talking about this publicly and encouraging companies to change the conversation, what advice you have for me and other moms to bring more of this authenticity into our lives?
Well, I think, first of all, I commend you for what you're doing, and not only for mothers, but, for yourself and starting an LLC. And, it's scary, and you're putting your neck out there. And so I think it's wonderful what you're doing. And what I would say, to you and other mothers is that I think, for better or for worse, mostly worse, motherhood can be a competitive sport, and we're always trying to one-up each other and to make ourselves feel better. But what I have seen in my research is that when one mother comes out and is honest, it still becomes kind of a competitive sport, but it's to one up each other for everything we're doing wrong, which is just funny and interesting. And I think those conversations have to be had. So I was talking to a mother the other day and I was like, I feel like such a jerk. I forgot to send my son to school, with his lunchbox today. And then she said, you think that's bad? I forgot to pick my daughter up from school last week. And then another mother's like, you think that's bad? And it was like honesty begets honesty. But it took one mother of like throwing the rock in the pond.
Yeah.
And saying, I made a mistake this morning. But the ripple effect was we all make mistakes and we're all messing this up. But I think it takes, brave people to throw the first rock in and not, fear judgment of that. But I think if there was more of that mothers would feel less alone. And I study mothers all day, every day, and every single one of them feels like they are doing the worst job. And that is so heartbreaking because I know it's not true.
Yeah.
But they believe it. And that's a hard place to mother from when you feel like you're messing it up.
It is. And there's this way that the other extreme of it, though, of thinking that you're just the best mom is also robbing. It's just so complex, motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like you have to be willing to be able to talk and share about both parts and realize when you're in the midst of something really hard that sometimes you actually have to go through that to get to a better place.
Yeah, and I think it's, everybody doesn't need to, completely air all their dirty laundry. And sometimes my husband, gives me a hard time. He's like, I think you're putting a lot of vulnerable stuff out on the internet about how you're doing as a mother. But I'm like, it helps me. It helps other people. But we all have highs and lows and ups and downs, and that's, human nature. But I think to keep all that in and hide it, that's a painful place to be. And it's, I always say when your insides don't match your outsides, if you feel like you're doing a bad job, I think it's okay to say you're doing a bad job, or you feel like you're doing a bad job versus you feel like you're doing a bad job, but on the outside, you're just like happy, happy, joy, joy. And that is a place of deceit and I think creates some friction.
Yeah. I'm wondering about, as you've been more real and as you've been taking risks, like putting yourself out there for the TED Talk and deciding to become the owner of Mom Complex, what do you think has been the impact of that on your children? What do you think they're learning from watching you live your life this way?
That's a great question. And I think, my daughter's in the third grade and last year she had to do like the little cheesy, like Mother's Day, like what I love about my mother. And one of the, which I don't even think that she would even pick up on this stuff, but one of the sentence completions said, I'm proud of my mother because ... And she said, she owns her own company and she's writing a book. And I was like, wow, like for a little girl, in the second grade, whether that's her path or not is, not important. But it was like that she could see that and that she was proud of it. She never would have said that about, my previous life, even though she was younger. And the other thing I'll say is that I do travel a good amount for my job, and I did in my previous career. But when I would leave my children to go on a business trip in my previous career, I was very sad about it. I was bummed about it. And, my daughter was 5 at the time. And if she said, Mommy, I don't want you to go on this trip, my response was, I don't want to go either. And it was kind of this pity party for me. Like, she didn't want me to go. I didn't want to go. I was mad about it. But now, I'm the same human being. She's the same human being. But the other night she said, I don't want you to go away, Mommy. And I said, but Mommy wants to go away and listen to where I'm going and listen to what I'm doing. And I'm choosing to go on this trip. And I'm so happy and it fills me with joy. And it was genuine.
Wow.
it's like a reverse energy flow that I have control of my life, and I'm controlling when I get on an airplane and when I don't. And I could share that excitement with her instead of kind of sharing and I think that rubs off on the children, and I'm very proud of that I can, I can still travel, but it's not the same energy flow.
Yeah, that sounds amazing and like such a major shift. And I think they do pick up on those things so much in ways that we don't even always realize.
Yeah. And they, like I said, I mean, they were younger, in my previous career, but this Friday I'm going on my son's field trip to the zoo. I never in a million years would have had the courage in my previous career to tell any human being that I was taking off the day to, go to the zoo. And so I'm just more present and accessible and available and happy and calm. And, I try my best. I'm not perfect at it, but that when I'm with them, I'm with them. And that is, we have one chance to do this life. And, I want to go to the zoo sometimes. And so I'm excited to be able to finally have the boundaries to be able to go on field trips and have fun with them.
Yeah, that flexibility of being able to design the life you want according to what your priorities are and to be able to make those choices to be present in your kids' lives. That's something I'm really appreciating about. I was for years a consultant, so I had some of that flexibility then too. And as I'm building Mother's Quest, making sure that I don't ever lose sight of that.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about is how, the whole can women have it all? And I believe that women can have it all, but you first have to know what your own all actually is.
That's great.
And for me, I spent 14 years in a career collecting everybody else's all. So I had my moms, my dads, my husbands, my bosses, the CEOs, the CFOs, like I had collected this bag of everybody else's alls, and I was very empty and hollow and, not fulfilled. And so now, being an entrepreneur of a small company and being able to go home at night and see my kids, like that's my all. And now that I have achieved my all, I am much less concerned about what people think about that all. So a lot of people would say, I took a step back and I left this big advertising career and now I'm a small business owner. But I'm like, this is my all. Like I did the work to figure out what drains me and what fills me up, and I've created it. And I believe that women can do that, but you have to do the hard work and the homework to figure out what your all actually is.
I really appreciate hearing this because I struggle with the term about balance. For some reason, the achieving balance has never landed right with me. And also this notion about whether you can have it all. And I think just this idea of defining for yourself what matters most. You can have the things that matter most when you're mindful about it. And you can't always have them in each moment. You have to assess what's happening for me this week or even today or even in this moment, what's most important right now.
Yeah, when I think about balance in my previous career versus now, I mean, the balance for me that was off was effort versus effect. So I was putting in so much effort into this career and this job, but the effect that I had on our clients' business or on the world or on improving people's lives was very minimal. So it was a tremendous amount of work for, to put some television commercials out into the world that people would just change the channel. And I felt like I was leaving my two kids at home and that I needed to have a bigger impact on the world. And so now, fast forward 3 years later, and I've created a company where I don't work anywhere near the hours that I used to. So the effort is not as great, but the effect and the impact is enormous. And that was the balance that I was looking for, was that I couldn't continue to give so much unless I felt like it was, really making a difference. And now that equation feels really right.
That sounds amazing. What would be your words of wisdom then, your most important words of wisdom for me or for other moms that are starting on our quest to live the life that sounds like you're living now, of really feeling like the effort we're putting in is having an impact, that we're fulfilled by our work, but that we're present with our kids? What would you recommend?
One of the things that helped me a lot, one of the self-help books that I got a lot from is called Finding Your Own North Star by Martha Beck. And it's such a great book, and there's a lot of activities in it. And one of the activities that anybody can do just in the comfort of their own home is you take out a sheet of notebook paper and draw a line down the center of the page. And on the left-hand side, list out all the things in the past 6 months that have just drained you and depleted you, and they just wore you out. And that can be at work, at home, it should be from your life. And then on the right-hand side, all the examples and experiences that filled you with light, filled you with joy, gave you energy. And I actually did that exercise when I was on vacation one time. And when I just did it kind of top of mind really quick. And what revealed itself, and hopefully, some revelations would come from it from anybody that's listening, is that for me, everything on the left side was kind of big and, big meetings, big responsibility, big company, big stress. And everything on the right was small, like small moments, bite-sized chunks of impact, small teams. And so in that moment, I could tell in terms of my career that smaller was better, and that I didn't need the trappings of success that bigness provided. And so I think it's an activity or exercise that anybody can and should do. And it's very revealing. And I think you have to follow that, whatever it reveals. And you have to, and you can start building a life that leads you more towards the right side of the page.
I love that. I'm going to definitely do that. And I can imagine that it seems like it would be important to come back to this kind of exercise more than once as your life continues to change and evolve.
Yeah. And just hearing you say that reminded me that another exercise that I learned about was that, to write a paragraph phrase of, what your definition of success is in life, not in your career, in life. What does success look like for you? And that was a really hard exercise for me because I had defined my life and my success by my career. So it was almost like me staring at a blank page of like, holy crap, I have no idea what success in life looks like. I only know about it at work. And so the exercise was first write down one paragraph, your definition of success. And then only after you do that and you get clarity about that, then write down your definition of success in your career. And it was a wonderful exercise, and I probably did it like 5 or 6 years ago, but I dug it up recently, to your point. I was like, I can't remember exactly what I said. And what was fascinating to me, I just found it like 3 days ago, was that, my definition of success in life was little things like writing people thank you notes and showing up to parties not empty-handed and calling people on the phone. It was just kind of being a good human being. Yeah. And when I looked at that definition of success, I thought, that's not that hard to achieve. like I think I can probably do that. But those are 2 great exercises that really were kind of plots on my map of, getting to a more meaningful place in my life.
Those sound fabulous. And again, I'll include some links to Martha Beck's book. And then this last exercise, is that something that you found in a particular source?
It's actually from a woman who I was working with who is a life coach, and her name is Devin Green.
Okay.
And her website is Fog Dog Consulting. And she is a woman that I've worked with for years, and it's called Fog Dog because she helps people kind of find clarity in their moments of fog. And she would give me exercises, have me work through them. And she was really a true catalyst in helping me, understand who I was and what I wanted out of this life. And now that I have that clarity, it's just unbelievable how quick I can make decisions. I don't rest in ambiguity anymore. I know what makes me happy. I know what makes me unhappy. I know what fills up my tank. I know what makes me cry. I certainly don't have all the answers, and I still make tons of mistakes and have lots of highs and lows, but I know who I am as a person. And from 15 to 35 years old, I had no knowledge of, who I was as a human being.
Wow. It sounds like you're in an amazing place in your life. And I'm wondering if there's a recent moment that comes to mind that you feel really captures all the learning and all of the growth and clarity you've had that you've been talking about. Some moment that feels like you living your epic life that's happened recently.
The most recent one, I do a lot of yoga, and I still get stressed, and I am, I don't walk around on clouds, and, it's still, I have a lot of stress, I have a lot of pressure, I have 2 young kids, marriage, house, all the stuff. But I was in yoga the other day and was just kind of putting my head on the floor at the end of the practice and was just kind of overcome with profound gratitude that I'm so happy that I found myself again after 20 years of living my life for other people. And I'm just very grateful because I know it could all be gone in, the blink of an eye. And no matter what happens or how long I live, I had a moment on the yoga mat, last week where I'm just profoundly proud and happy that I'm living, a life that is true to me and is not kind of rubbing against me.
Yeah.
And, so just kind of a quiet moment of gratitude. And I'm sure an hour later, the whole day went to crap over, something, but it was a special quiet moment.
Yeah. It sounds like when you identified what success looked like in your life, it was those little moments. It wasn't these grand, sweeping, amazing, awards, but it was those quiet moments with your family, or writing those thank you notes, or having the moment of gratitude in yoga.
Yeah, that's winning,
Yeah.
for me. And I don't know, what life will look like tomorrow or the next day, but I'm just proud that my insides match my outsides, and I'm not living, I don't have the mask on, anymore. And I always say about a mask, if you're wearing a mask, the world might not know you're wearing a mask, but you're wearing the mask. And every time you lie to another human being and say, I'm fine, everything's great, you are saying to your soul that you value what that other human being thinks of you more than you value your own truth. That you are incapable of saying, I'm having a bad day, or my husband and I aren't getting along, or my daughter's making me crazy. And I think that's a really painful place to be. And no matter what highs and lows and ins and outs I go through, I no longer wear the mask that I wore for 20 long years. 15 to 35. And so it's not that I feel invincible, but I just feel like there's less that can damage me and hurt me because I'm not living this facade.
Yeah. Well, I know we're getting close to the end of the conversation. Before we share with anybody listening how they might find you, I always like through my coaching work to end with acknowledgments and identify any takeaways. So I wanted to just acknowledge you for the way in which you have really owned your authenticity and the way you talk about taking off the mask in your TED Talk, in your regular posts, in all honesty, and in this conversation today. I'm really grateful for it. And it's going to be a guiding light for me as I step into becoming more and more comfortable with myself and the life I'm leading right now. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for saying that. It's I often forget that other people are listening or reading. So thank you.
There's someone on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there are any takeaways or moments of clarity that came for you from this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a good reminder to kind of stop and look back at my old journey, or the journey that I'm on still, I guess I should say, because, I'm kind of a workhorse and I'm always looking forward and I'm always moving forward. So it's another moment of gratitude that, I can kind of pat myself on the back and just remember that 5 years ago was a different story, and we wouldn't be having this conversation, and I wouldn't have, the story to share. And if, one other human being can start to live more authentically or take off their mask or saying, that they're not as happy, that is truly meaningful. And it's the sole reason that I've been so vocal about my journey, because I didn't hear other people talking about this when I was going through it. Yeah. And I hope that it's some sort of, release valve for other women.
Well, thank you so much, Katherine. If people want to learn more about you or read your blog and follow Mom Complex, what's the best way for them to find you?
The best way is on my blog, and it's inallhonesty.com. And there are all kinds of links on the site to Mom Complex website, and just being able to sign up to receive the blog every Monday morning. And I think that it's a great way to feel, less alone with what anybody's going through.
Fantastic. And I'll include links too in the notes. And I will continue to be an avid reader, so you can know when you send your posts out that I'll be on the other side.
No, thank you.
Watching them carefully. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening.
Great. Thanks for having me, Julie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, visit mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and help us to spread the word. I want to end with some words to help light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.